My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
What's left of the earlier accident northbound I-15 in Sandy near 106 has been moved to the left shoulder. All lanes are open. We do have debris blocking a right lane of travel southbound I-15. It's after the 201 junction and just before 3500 South. Many families face food insecurity. You can help by donating to Macy's Harvest of Hope Drive, where proceeds benefit childhood hunger. Now through November 30th, visit any Macy's store or online at Macy's.com/online to donate. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather cloudy with warmer daytime temperatures through Monday, and there's a 30% chance of rain on Tuesday when temperatures cool off back into the 50s. Right now, 61 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bamas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
One of the big headlines today, the House passed a $14.3 billion aid package for Israel. They did that yesterday afternoon. But let's get beneath the headlines. The aid is not anywhere close to being on its way to the Middle East. Rather, an intense showdown is gearing up to happen between the Senate and the House. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
So it was late in the day yesterday that the House passed this $14.3 billion aid package, standalone package, so that puts it at odds with what the Senate has been talking about. The Senate hasn't actually voted on it yet, but that is what they've been talking about. They want to bundle several things together on the Senate side to include aid for Israel, for Ukraine, for the southern border, and a few other projects that the president would like to roll into about a $100 billion package. So the vote in the House yesterday is worth noting. It was 226 to 196, so mostly along partisan lines. That's not too big a surprise. There were 12 Democrats that joined with the Republicans to move the bill through the lower chamber. There were also 2 Republicans who voted against the package altogether. So just to give you an idea of where we're headed, let's take a look at what both the Senate majority and minority leaders have had to say over the last couple of days so that we can get some perspective in terms of what comes next. And all of this coming painfully slow as things continue to escalate in the Middle East. So yesterday, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Senate would just ignore what the House has done and pursue its own global aid package.
The Senate will not be considering this deeply flawed proposal from the House GOP, and instead, we will work together on our own bipartisan emergency aid package that includes aid to Israel, Ukraine, competition with the Chinese government, and humanitarian aid for Gaza, so much needed.
Senator Schumer went on to say that he told the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, that things can only get done in Congress if they're done in a bipartisan fashion.
When we spoke the night he was elected, I said, let's work together in a bipartisan way. And I reminded him that things only get done if you work in a bipartisan way. Speaker Boehner, Speaker Ryan, Speaker McCarthy had to learn that lesson the hard way.
So a little bit of the pontificating there by the Senate Majority Leader telling the new Speaker of the House that he just doesn't quite get it yet, and so that he's going to have to work across party lines to get something done. And he is actually right in terms of what often happens, and that is that work gets done in the House of Representatives, regardless of whether that chamber is controlled by Republicans or Democrats, and then it often goes to the Senate to die because you've had majority leaders from both parties be unwilling to take things to the floor. Really interesting, a couple days ago, Senate Minority Leader, Republican Mitch McConnell, defended the need for the Ukraine funding.
The notion that this money is distracting from America's other security priorities is nonsense. Anyone making this claim doesn't understand how critical production lines work.
And then let's just take one more from Senator McConnell. He went on to say that America can address all the threats from different parts of the world, and he made the case that they're all interconnected.
As foolish as it is to deny the clear link between America's adversaries and the threats we face, it's every bit as dangerous to pretend that as a global superpower, our nation cannot or should not face each of them down. We have the means to lead the free world and assure our own security.
All right, so let's break this down just a little bit. And regardless of how you feel about any of those, I want to just frame one component to all of this as we consider it. Often we look at bills in big packages, things all bundled together. And on one hand, you can say, as the minority leader said, these are all linked. They're all interconnected. And so you can throw in aid for Israel, aid for Ukraine, aid for putting more security on the southern border, dealing with a few things from China and some humanitarian aid. You put that all into a $106 billion emergency aid package, and you punch it through. And on one hand, you can make that case and say, okay, well, let's just get it done. Those are all important things. Let's make that happen. And this is often where we get in trouble, and the thing we have to think again about in terms of the process and how things get done in Washington, D.C. On one hand, it is more convenient for members to be able to have a whole bunch of things all wrapped into one. And let's talk about that. The best thing for members of Congress is it makes their job easier. They don't have to stay in session as long. They can just take one vote. It also makes it easier because if they have a constituent who doesn't like a particular portion of the bill, they can say, well, I didn't really like the border funding either, but it was so vital that we did the aid to Israel and Ukraine that I just had to do that. That was my compromise. Or they may have a constituent come in and maybe they're upset about the aid going to Ukraine. And it allows the member of Congress to say, well, I'm with you. I didn't love the Ukraine piece being thrown in there as well, but it was so critical that we took care of Israel and that we started to address security on our southern border. So as you can see, when you put it all together, it makes it really easy to justify anything. So now let's talk about the flip side of that. What is the challenge of that? What's the downside of bundling all of these things together? I think one of the big issues in bundling this all together, as opposed to having one package for Israel, one package for aid to Ukraine, one package for aid dealing with the border and so on, if you don't do that, it makes it really hard to see what actually happens and then to hold anybody accountable for the results. Because if it's all just one big thing, it becomes a false choice. It's either vote for everything or you're the person who's voting to stop everything. And the problem with all of that is, again, there's no accountability in that. So let's have the Israel conversation. Let's have a vote on it. Transparent, process is straightforward, and then we can hold people accountable. Did we like that? Did we not like that? Were the results what we thought they would be, or did they turn out to be something else? Was the money well spent, not well spent? Should we do it again or not? But the problem is that when we lump all of these things together, everybody has such a short memory these days. And we'll talk about short memories a little later on in the program today, because it is a danger on so many fronts. But when it comes to our spending, this is part of the way that you get $33 trillion in debt. You just bundle everything together. There's no transparency. There's no accountability. There's no back-end part of the process. And so we have to be very careful, regardless of how you feel about each of these separate things, to say we have to do it all at once is a little bit of a myth. And it's sort of what Washington wants us to believe, that the only way we can get anything done is to put it into these big thousands and thousands of page bills that nobody really reads. And then everyone votes on it in the middle of the night, and everybody moves on to the next thing. And so that's the challenge. And to me, that's the thing we have to think again about is let's have the debate. You for or against the aid package to Israel? Let's have that debate. Let's have that vote. And I think the fact that the new Speaker of the House wants us to actually think about what are we not going to spend is also a good question. Now, whether he's choosing the right thing to say, well, we'll take that money out of the $80 billion that we've allocated as extra money to go to the IRS. You can have that debate. That's fine. But we should be debating the question that he's asking that's right is if we are going to spend more money on something, we should spend less money somewhere else. And people will say, well, that's ludicrous. This is an emergency. This is wartime. Every American I know does that every day. In fact, I have watched it happen at the grocery store all the time. It's called the put-back index. And sometimes people will put one item of food back while they take another because they can't afford to buy both because their budget doesn't allow it. Circumstance don't allow it. But in Congress, they just take everything, throw it all into one basket, and then they just push it through. And so that's where we got to start thinking again and thinking different in terms of how these things play out. So we'll continue to watch it. And again, regardless of how you feel about Israel, Ukraine, southern border, those are all important debates. Should they all just be one easy vote that everyone can justify and no one can be held accountable for? I think there's a better way to get it done. It just requires Congress to be in the chamber, having the debates, having the votes in front of the American people. I think that's a good way to think about it. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. KSL is more than a news station. It's a meeting place.
What an extraordinary, forgiving nature.
I love stories like that.
It's where neighbors and coworkers engage with the community, where anyone can get the very latest news from Midvale to the Middle East.
Police have located the vehicle.
Israel is expected to ramp up its strikes.
The good news is they've opened up that right lane of travel.
This week, join the anchors and hosts Utah has relied on for generations. We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
We have breaking news at this hour on KSL News Radio. On Highway 191 south of Moab, Grand County Sheriff's deputies have now taken a suspect in this early morning shooting in West Bountiful into custody. The shooting happened around 5 o'clock this morning, and one male person, in his 50s, was killed at that scene. And a short time later, the suspect was located between Moab and Monticello on Highway 191. Grand County deputies have been working since then to wait out the standoff, and they now report that they have taken the suspect into custody. We'll have more for you coming up at 1:30 here on KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas.
Hi folks, it's Doug and Kathy with Window World.
I've been thinking our window features are awesome, but professional installation really makes our windows far superior.
That's for sure. Our installers are trained and experienced to do the job right.
They're employees and a valuable asset for our team.
We trust them, and so can you.
Let's get you on our schedule. Call 801-281-8111 and our team will take care of you.
Or visit windowworldutah.com, and we promise no baloney.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers.
On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms.
Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Todd Larson at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email tlarson@ksl.com. That's T. Larson at KSL.com.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in her life, including turning 17.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, sheriff's deputies in southern Utah have been waiting out a standoff with a murder suspect along the highway south of Moab. Second, 7 wild horses died in a semi-rollover near Delta on Monday. They were rounded up on public land in Nevada. And third, fighting continues in Gaza between Israeli forces and Hamas, while the United States has been urging a pause to allow relief supplies to reach civilians. 61 degrees, mostly cloudy right now in Salt Lake. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We're staying with a conversation regarding the United States and support for Ukraine. We talked about some of the funding debates that are going on inside of Congress. And we're going to stay with this conversation for the next couple of segments of the show to talk about an important component in all of this. And that is not just what's going on in Congress, but actually what Ukraine is doing in their own way. To make sure it's sort of their own lobbying effort, and we'll look at it in several different aspects, including a faith delegation coming up in the next segment that is making an interesting case for support for Ukraine here in the United States this week. And so we'll, again, continue to watch the debate in the House, in the Senate, in terms of where they're going. But we really want to dig in now in terms of what Ukraine is asking for, what their communication strategy is, especially in light of what's going on in the Middle East, and how easy it is to be forgetful while we're here in the United States about what's going on in Ukraine and why it matters. And we're really thrilled to have back on the program Laura Seligman, award-winning journalist, covers the Pentagon for Politico, has a great piece in Politico talking about how Ukraine is pleading for that support as they continue to go up against the Russian assault. And Laura, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So give us a little lay of the land in terms of what the Ukrainian officials are doing. What are they doing in terms of the U.S. component and allies in Europe in terms of kind of this new messaging – it's not really a lobbying, but I guess it really is lobbying in terms of trying to keep people focused and on path.
Yeah, I think that it is accurate to describe it as a lobbying campaign, and Ukrainian officials are ramping this up in Washington for new weapons and new training specifically. And of course, this comes as Washington's support for the war does seem to be wobbling a little bit, both because of new leadership in the House as well as this new crisis in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. So last week, there was a delegation of Ukrainian officials, troops, and advisors that I spoke with, and they shared their latest wish list. So that included 3 main things. That's Marine Corps training on amphibious operations, new air defenses to take down Russian glide bombs that are posing this increased threat to Ukrainian forces on the battlefield, as well as the long-range single warhead version of the ATACMS missile, which the Biden administration has secretly shipped to Ukraine in September. So this is the more up-to-date version they want. And actually, the Ukrainian officials have started comparing Russia to Hamas, which, of course, killed 1,400 Israelis in a terrorist attack on October 7th, tragically. And one official in my conversation with them called the cooperation between Russia, North Korea, and Iran, which, of course, funds Hamas, the new axis of evil. So you're seeing this kind of explicit campaign of Ukrainian officials trying to break through this new news cycle here as we're coming up on the winter.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you pointed out the winter. We are entering that tough slog component. It's a period that Vladimir Putin has used to kind of recalibrate, rearm, and get ready for another spring battle, offensive or counteroffensive, whichever it may be. Give us some sense from those Ukrainians that you spoke with, Laura, that it's such great behind-the-scenes insight. Unpack a little bit for us in terms of that marine component, dealing with those glide bombs coming in, and then the long-range weapons as well.
Yeah, certainly. So the U.S. has been, and the U.S. Army specifically, has been doing a lot of training of Ukrainians over the past almost 2 years now. This training is specifically taking place in Germany. There's training to use some of the U.S. weapons that we've sent, and there's combined arms training, which is how to move infantry units on the battlefield with the armor that we've also provided. But now they're also asking for training from the U.S. Marine Corps on specifically how to do amphibious or ship-to-shore operations. And this is important because one of their main lines of efforts now is to get across the Dnipro River there in southern Ukraine. And this is a huge operation because that river is very extensive. So one of their main lines of efforts is to get across that river to get to that territory on the other side where that is less densely mined, and the Ukrainians think they have a better chance of getting through Russian defenses. Then, of course, the new air defenses they want. In particular, I was struck because they want to accelerate the F-16 training program. They think of the modern fighter jets as an air-to-air air defense capability against these Russian glide bombs. And then finally, that long-range single warhead version of the ATACMS that it can go 190 miles as opposed to just 100 miles. That's the 100 miles is the version they have right now. And it's also a single warhead instead of the cluster bomb warhead that they have right now. So that allows them to attack farther targets that are hardened, such as aircraft and hardened shelters. So those are the three new things that they're asking for now.
Yeah. And so as you look at that from your unique perspective, I want to ask you a couple components to that. One, that longer range capability. I know many on the Ukrainian side have said, look, we've got to be able to soften up the kind of the next level targets. If it's just that direct contact, that's a yard by yard, mile by mile kind of thing, where if we can have some of the longer range capability, then you can soften that up and actually get some momentum moving through. So that's kind of one element I'd love your perspective on. And then from the Ukrainians' standpoint, are they still feeling like they're getting just enough just to kind of keep the fight going and stay engaged, as opposed to really getting what they need, not just from us in the U.S., but from the other allies as well?
Right. Okay. So on your first point on momentum, yes, I do think that Ukrainians think that the best way to put pressure on the Russian forces is to attack some of these targets sort of deep in Russian territory, 100 to 200 miles within Russian territory, such as the airfield and the helicopters in hardened shelters. And they think that these ATACMS missiles will be able to help them do that, so that once they break through the front lines, then it will be easier going after that, because of course the Russian defenses are extremely deep. These fields are heavily mined, and we've seen over the last few months that it's been really tough going, and the Ukrainians have suffered many casualties. And then in terms of getting what they need from the U.S. as well as other European partners. Look, I think that many international countries have given a lot so far to Ukraine, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and I think that at some point that kind of aid and the support for the war may start seeing that run out, unfortunately, and it's just a fact that European countries, especially, but also the U.S., are running out of weapons and money to send to Ukraine. I mean, just in the U.S. Congress, you have the new House Speaker sidelining new assistance for Ukraine. So once the funding that we currently have runs out, then there's no more right now. And I think it's going to be harder and harder to gin up support for Ukraine as this conflict goes on.
Yeah, great perspective as always. Laura Seligman, award-winning journalist, covers the Pentagon for Politico. Great piece as always, Laura. Always appreciate your insight and your perspective. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Again, that's Laura Seligman. She's a journalist, award-winning journalist that covers the Pentagon for Politico. And I think those are crucial parts of that conversation. Again, it really is a lobbying and a communication strategy effort going on from Ukraine to remind everyone, look, if Vladimir Putin isn't stopped from marching through our country, don't think for a second that's going to be where he's going to be content and where he's going to stop. And really trying to help allies, including the United States, to understand that everybody's involved in this. And we can't, as important as everything going on in the Middle East is, we can't take our eye off of what's happening to Ukraine. And the Ukrainians are clearly trying to connect the dots between Russia, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, that all of those are interconnected in so many different ways. And so that's going to be an interesting part of the conversation. And we're going to stay with the conversation. And when we come back, we're going to stay with some Ukrainians. A unique group of Ukrainian interfaith leaders are in the United States this week, making their case as to why freedom matters in Ukraine and why it should matter to all of us. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas, and this hour we have breaking news. The Grand County Sheriff says the suspect in this morning's homicide at the Lowe's store in West Bountiful has now been taken into custody. The department's Facebook page says Highway 191 is open again between Moab and Monticello. West Bountiful police had identified the suspect as Jake Jackson. They had been trying to locate him before he turned up in southern Utah. The shooting happened about 5 o'clock this morning in the parking lot of the home improvement store. The victim was a man in his 50s, and his name has not been released. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, during a briefing aboard Air Force One on its way to Brunswick, Maine, was talking about the latest U.S. aid package to assist Ukraine.
Departments of State and Defense announced a new package of weapons and equipment for Ukraine to meet their critical battlefield needs. The package is partially drawn from existing U.S. military stocks using presidential drawdown authorities that Congress has previously given.
And House Speaker Mike Johnson had been ready to bring a bill to the floor with aid for Israel, but not for Ukraine, that appeared to have a poor chance of passing the Senate. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day 237 points. The NASDAQ is up 188. And our KSL weather, we've got a cloudy weekend ahead. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
You hear me all the time on this program talk about the fact that we need to think again about things we think we know. And often when it comes to weight loss or getting in fit shape or becoming more healthy, we think we've got to have a bunch of potions and lotions and magic things, and we have to count all the calories, and we have to do all of these complex things. Well, think again. It's called SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art, and it's a different way to think about all of it. No potions, no magic, no counting. It's science. You have your own coach, you have your own nutritionist, and you have a plan to make sure your body gets the nutrients that it needs, the fuel that it needs. The weight falls off. I lost 37 pounds in just 90 days. I'm almost 2 years into my program, and I love it because it's so simple. It's caused me to think again about my health and wellness. You can do the same, and you can always start your wellness journey at SOTA Weight Loss, SOTAweightloss.com.
If you're like me, age 65 or older, congratulations. By today's standards, we shouldn't be alive. We didn't wear bike helmets. We drank from the hose. We played outside all day and got cut up and broke bones. We rode in cars that didn't have seatbelts, let alone airbags. We did things that people today wouldn't dream of. But that doesn't mean we're invincible. These days, we have doctor appointments, multiple medications, and chronic conditions to manage. That's why there's Teladoc Health. Teladoc Health brings together all of your health care into one program, including everything from primary care to chronic care management. We even have coaches to help you with diabetes, hypertension, and weight management. And for non-emergencies, someone is always available to speak with at any time during the day or night, no matter what your health issue is. Teladoc Health offers everything needed to live healthier ever after. Learn more at teladochealth.com. That's TELADOC health.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
The crash and the delays are fully gone now, northbound I-15 prior to 106 South in Sandy. But we do have backups northbound on Legacy going through Centerville. Attention, Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. Your complete parking lot safety starts with GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, cloudy with warmer daytime temperatures through Monday. There's a 30% chance of rain on Tuesday. And right now, we're at 63 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're staying with the conversation just a little bit longer as it relates to Ukraine. If you missed the last segment, we had Laura Seligman from Politico on talking about some of those leaders from Ukraine that have been making the case about what weapons are needed, what kind of training is needed, and really just trying to remind everyone why it matters and why stopping Vladimir Putin from completely taking over the country is so vital, not just to Ukraine, but to the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. This week, a really unique delegation of Ukrainian interfaith leaders visited the United States to also make the case for support for Ukraine to defeat Russia. The war has brought leaders of different faiths together in a unique way because when it comes to religion and religious liberty, the stakes are incredibly high. And really thrilled to have joining us on the program Peter Smith, a reporter covering religion and politics with the AP News Global Religion team. And Peter, thanks for joining us, and a great piece on AP News talking about this group. Just for our listeners, give us a sense of who's part of this group and who are they making their case to this week in the U.S.?
Sure. This is a group, its official name is the All-Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, and this is a council that includes various Christian, Jewish, and Muslim clergy. Ukraine is a predominantly Orthodox country, and we can get more into the details of that in a bit, but it does have a significant religious diversity. So this council includes Catholics, various Protestants, and as I said, Jewish and Muslim as well. And they all were they're part of a delegation that is visiting the states this week. They started in Washington, and they were meeting with political leaders, other people of influence, and eventually they're going to make their way to Houston, where they're going to connect with members of the medical community there who have sent medical missions to Ukraine.
Fascinating stuff. And talk to us just a little bit in your reporting. You went through some of the things that are happening particularly in Russian-occupied areas inside of Ukraine in terms of what that's doing to all kinds of faiths.
What they are saying is that their message that they wanted to convey was that they see religious freedom as being robust in Ukraine, whereas their fellow believers in Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine, they said, are suffering severe persecution. And as one leader said, we're not just talking about social marginalization, but people actually being murdered. And they say that basically any religious organization operating in a Russian-controlled area would have to be totally towing a Russian line, or otherwise they would face severe persecution.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your piece talking about, you mentioned the Orthodox Church there and some of the complexities of that and the ties to the Russian Orthodox Church. Kind of walk us through that so we can get a little sense of how they're navigating that part of it.
This is a complex matter, but in basic terms, there are really two Orthodox churches operating in Ukraine right now. One of which, has long historic roots and connections with the Russian Orthodox Church, and the other of which is more recent. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has historically had ties to the Russian Church. Ultimately, their patriarch is the Patriarch of Moscow, who has, in no uncertain terms, blessed the war effort, blessed the invasion of Ukraine, saying that Russia is fighting against Western liberalism. However, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church itself has declared, we are independent now of this church. We are totally committed to Ukraine, and we should be seen as such. However, there are many in Ukraine who don't believe that there are a number of clerics who have actually been charged with complicity in the Russian invasion, and there's currently a pending bill that would ban any religious organization whose center of influence essentially is in an aggressor state. So the argument is by the Ukrainian Orthodox Church is, well, our center of influence is not there; it's in heaven. They were not at this part of this delegation. The other church has a similar name, but a very different perspective, is the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, which was recently recognized as independent by the Patriarch of Constantinople, who, if the Orthodox Church he is considered the first among equals in the church, and so that's a real point of contention between him and Moscow and between the two Orthodox churches. The Orthodox Church of Ukraine, which did have a representative, basically has said that, we're not talking about, all we're talking about here is banning Moscow's influence in Ukraine. So that was their attempt to allay concerns about this pending legislation in Ukraine.
And then let's dig in just a little bit in terms of the message. Obviously, one of the challenges here in the United States is people are so easily distracted and so on to the next thing. And with everything bubbling and brewing in the Middle East right now, there are many who have just turned their attention there, and Ukraine is sort of left on its own. Give me a sense in terms of what these interfaith leaders from Ukraine, what their message is. I know there's been some hope that maybe they can connect with some of their evangelical tag team partners here in the U.S. and in other places. But what is the real essence of their message? What is it that they're trying to lean into in these conversations, both in Washington, D.C. and in Houston?
They are here to convey a message that the very fact that they are all united and all working together is a display in of itself of religious freedom and tolerance in Ukraine. And they are saying this is what Ukraine is fighting for. It's for the defense of this pluralistic and tolerant and religiously vibrant culture. They're here to thank Americans for the support they've received so far and to ask for continued assistance.
Great perspective. Peter Smith, a reporter covering religion and politics with the AP News Global Religion team. Peter, thanks for making time for us. Great insight.
Good to talk to you today.
Again, that's Peter Smith from the AP, and just talking about just a very unique interfaith group from all different walks of life. You've got Christian faiths, you've got Jewish leaders, you've got Muslim leaders that have all come together in this interfaith dialogue and effort to connect with people here in the United States, to remind everyone here in America that religion and religious liberty is a crucial component to freedom. They talked about some of the challenges in these Russian-occupied territories whereas one of the members of the delegation said that they've literally had to go underground because of the persecution from Russian forces as they go into those areas and occupy them. So there's a lot of real challenges there. But it is one of those important things. We often take for granted those first freedoms that we have here in the United States of America, and religious liberty being part of that. And the interconnection of all of those is important for everyone to remember. One of the other things that stood out to me from Peter's article in AP was actually likening Ukraine to Yugoslavia. That, look, we can't have this all unravel to the point that it just doesn't exist anymore, and that there is a way to have a pluralistic society, that's what they want in Ukraine. And much as we have here in the United States, and something we need to remember that we have here in the United States and not let slip, especially with some of the escalation in terms of the rhetoric coming out of the Middle East, it shows how fragile it can become, that anti-Semitism is not gone away. It's still just under the surface, that there's still discrimination and persecution that happens for people of faith and of faith organizations. And so while on one hand, this delegation from Ukraine, Interfaith Group, is saying, look, faith in Ukraine's future begins with faith in Ukraine now and in the future, and that it won't exist if Russia has its way and Vladimir Putin exerts his will in taking it over. And we would be really wise in this country to remember the same. If you want to have faith in America's future, we need faith in America's future. All faith, a pluralistic society where all can bring their whole authentic self into the public square, where we can have that pluralistic conversation, where we can value each other, where we can even have some holy envy for the differences we have in faith traditions and groups. That's where the fabric of society becomes very, very strong. Dictators, thugs, bad guys, terrorists, that's not good for them, because when people are able to tap into that kind of faith, it also fuels a real thirst for freedom. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. When we come back, it's our weekly Inside Sources Inside Look at presidential politics coming up next. Stick around.
Saturday, the BYU Cougars will be prowling the hills and hollers of Mountaineer Country. BYU, West Virginia. Join us for special extended pregame coverage as the Cougs shoot for win number 6 and a bowl bid. Saturday at noon on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
As the weather turns colder, this is when you need to get those new windows. So call Advanced Window Products. They'll replace your single-pane, rickety old windows with stylish, state-of-the-art double-pane windows with precision frames. You pick the style and color. They're custom-made right here in Salt Lake City. This company is so Utah. It's run by two guys who grew up here, Jake Weber and Utes defensive star Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sacktown with 7 NFL seasons under his belt. Great guys, great company, building high-quality windows for 37 years. Unlike other companies, they build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. No middleman. There's Jake, Nate, and their team, and there's you, saving on the highest quality windows. Right now, before winter, get $2,000 off 10 windows or more, and they offer 60 months 0% financing. So call Advanced Window Products now. You could have stylish new windows in 8 weeks. 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. Y'all gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistent scent, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because only the Sleep Number Climate 360 smart bed lets you each sleep up to 13 degrees cooler or warmer on either side, while you both sleep at your ideal level of firmness, comfort, and support, your Sleep Number setting. And now our all-new next-gen smart beds have temperature benefits, so you sleep better night after night. And now the new Queen Sleep Number C2 smart bed is only $8.99. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change. Something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. Learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Salt Lake today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Salt Lake, and get 10% off your first month.
Beethoven's Ninth just might be one of the greatest classical hits of all time. With its famous Ode to Joy, this iconic work is a favorite symphony for aficionados and a perfect first concert if you're symphonically curious. You don't want to miss your chance to see it at Maurice Abravanel Hall, live with the Utah Symphony November 3rd and 4th. Then, on November 17th and 18th, before the bustle of the holidays sets in, take a night for yourself. Picture a brisk fall evening with a delightful dinner downtown, followed by a concert with the Utah Symphony in the sparkling glow of Maurice Abravanel Hall. Be embraced by the warmth of Brahms' Second Symphony. This cheery and vivacious piece will brighten your autumn night. Tickets start at $21. Get yours at utahsymphony.org.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from the station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, sheriff's deputies in southern Utah say they've taken a murder suspect into custody after a standoff that lasted for several hours south of Moab. Second, a new manufacturing plant broke ground today in Tooele. Third, President Biden urging passage of a new aid package for Ukraine, although the House Speaker proposed one for Israel only. 63 degrees and mostly cloudy right now in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. It's great to be with you today, as always, and every Friday we cover the latest news in presidential politics, all leading up, of course, to the very big presidential election for 2024. And as we look at the different candidates, so we look at the different parties and the independents, it's always an interesting thing to see what they're doing and often questioning why they're doing what they're doing, as we always say, when it comes to trying to understand the behavior of someone running for president. Sometimes it's like trying to smell the color 7. And there's a lot happening in the color 7 category amongst all the different candidates, but we want to break them down in terms of what they actually did, what they said, and what's coming up that you should be watching for on the horizon as we start to get things ready for what will be an intense and pretty fast-moving 2024, kicking off in January with the Iowa caucus. We're about 72 days away, I want to say, from the Iowa caucus, where things will really get going. And so lots happening in the world, obviously, and right here at home. And it's always important that we separate out the crucial nature of what's happening around the world, what's happening in Israel and Gaza and Ukraine and other parts of the world is absolutely crucial and vital. Sometimes presidential politics plays into that, and sometimes it distracts from it. And that's part of our job, is to make sure we're ferreting that out in terms of what's political, what's good principle and policy, and what is just positioning the United States and our interests best here at home and around the world. So the next GOP primary debate's coming up on Wednesday of next week, November the 8th. So we'll take a look here in terms of who's qualified, who's coming, and what we can expect there, as well as what President Biden has been doing in a week that has been very busy and filled with both pressing issues around the world and politics right here at home. On Wednesday, he mixed them all together. In a speech he delivered to farmers in Minnesota, the president began the speech with an update of the war raging in Israel. Due to unceasing diplomatic efforts, Americans and others are finally able to leave Gaza through the Egyptian border. That was an important step in really securing the safety of those Americans. And so, again, while this was mostly a political event, couched with a little bit of Rose Garden on the road, which is what we like to call it when the president rolls out government programs in the midst of political events, as well as combining some of these international issues. And so he did start talking about Palestinians, Gaza, and Israel.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. We're working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible. I personally spent a lot of time speaking with the Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and President Sisi of Egypt and others to make sure that we could open this access for people to get out.
So we started on the international front. And again, remember, this was a speech delivered to farmers, a farmers group in Minnesota. And so the president shifted gears. And of course, the president's popularity and his favorability numbers have continued to slide in pretty significant ways over the last few months. In particular, the president has lost ground and lost support from farmers and those living in rural communities across the country. So in an effort to maybe bolster that just a little bit, as part of his speech in Minnesota, the president announced a major investment in farms and rural communities.
Today, I'm proud to announce new funding that will go directly to rural communities. $1 billion to fix aging critical rural infrastructure like electricity, water, wastewater systems that haven't been replaced in decades. And folks, this is just a start. Today I'm announcing we're investing nearly $2 billion to help more farmers adopt practices to fight climate change and earn new income.
So that was the president in Minnesota this week. Again, a little mix of politics and positioning and some programs coming out of Washington, D.C. That the president hopes will both deliver some good results for rural communities and also will try to shore up the political side in terms of some slipping support from the president in many of those communities. So that's what's happening with the current occupant of the White House. And as President Biden gears up to run for a second term at the helm, the Republicans, of course, continue to be a large field, but it got a little smaller this week. Over the last weekend, Mike Pence announced that he will not be joining his fellow Republican candidates on the debate stage this week. And he told the Jewish Coalition Conference that he was going to actually suspend his presidential campaign.
Traveling across the country over the past 6 months, I came here to say it's become clear to me this is not my time. So after much prayer and deliberation, I have decided to suspend my campaign for president effective today. We always knew this would be an uphill battle, but I have no regrets. The only thing that would have been harder than coming up short would have been if we'd never tried at all.
And that is one of the questions that, I always ask candidates, whether they are running for the highest office in the land or any other office in the land, whether that's a local mayor's race or a city council seat, a governor's race, a senatorial race. I always ask, what is it that makes it worthwhile, even if you come up short? And I actually think that the former vice president answered it well and answered it right in terms of saying, look, it wasn't about the outcome. We leave that up to the voters and up to God. This was about trying to change the course of the conversation and get back to some of those principles and policies that he thought were most important. So the former vice president bows out. That reduces the number. As I mentioned before, there will be a debate coming up on Wednesday of next week. We'll have special coverage here on Inside Sources and KSL News Radio. Currently, there are 5 candidates who have qualified to be on that debate stage. So that's a reduced number from where they were at the last debate. So those that have qualified thus far are Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, and Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. This is going to be a real crucial debate for many of those candidates that are just sort of holding on. The question will be, can they have a moment? Can they capture lightning in a bottle on that debate stage? Or can they parlay the events that are going on around them to show that they are different? We have seen since the last debate, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has captured not just a moment on the debate stage, she has turned it into forward movement and some momentum. And she has risen in the polls. She has risen in her fundraising and currently seems to be in that second slot behind the former president. And so we'll continue to monitor all of that as we look at the presidential race, along with the independent candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is gaining some traction and in a three-way race is polling about 22%. So that will be an interesting spoiler factor that we'll continue to monitor as well. Well, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. In hour number 2, we're going to start with what you might have missed and what I learned this week. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio,
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. We have breaking news at this hour. A semi-truck crashed and caught fire in Tooele near Main Street and 1000 North. Black smoke from the fire visible across the city. No word yet on injuries to the driver or others, but Highway 36 is closed through the area. Grand County Sheriff's deputies took a murder suspect into custody this afternoon after a standoff that lasted several hours. The suspect was spotted on Highway 191 south of Moab. Police in West Bountiful say the suspect shot and killed a man in the parking lot of the Lowe's Home Improvement Store about 5 o'clock this morning. Chief Brandon Erickson says this kind of case is rare in his community.
In West Bountiful, this is very rare. I've been here 11 years, and this is the first homicide that I've had here.
Erickson identified the suspect as 31-year-old Jake Jackson. The name of the victim, a man in his 50s, has not been released. A new manufacturing plant that will hire over 90 employees broke ground today. Central States Manufacturing building its 12th plant in Tooele. It will manufacture metal products designed for residential, commercial, and agricultural customers across the United States. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. 2 rockets exploded in southern Israel near the Gaza border on Friday, close to a hill where journalists had gathered to cover the latest round of fighting between Israel and Hamas. That's sound from the scene. No one there was injured, but this war has been particularly deadly for journalists. The Committee to Protect Journalists, a New York-based advocacy group, says 36 journalists and media workers have been killed in that conflict. And on the way will be, let's take a look at your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average up on the day now, 222 points. The NASDAQ has also had an up day, up right now 184 points. And our KSL weather looks like we'll have a cloudy weekend and maybe a little rain next week. KSL News Time, 2:02.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
I'm Mayor Erin Mendenhall. This is an exciting time for Salt Lake City, and we need to keep our city moving forward. Affordable housing is up, way up, and crime is down. We're taking unprecedented action on homelessness and historic steps on air quality. We've been tested in crisis after crisis, and we've shown our toughness and our grace. This November, let's keep Salt Lake City moving forward. Paid for by Aaron Mendenhall for Salt Lake City.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Got the Western Nut Company catalog in the mail the other day. I love the holiday season because since 1966, Western Nut has certainly been a part of our holidays at the Wright family. Right now, they are doing something extra special. I don't think they've ever done this before. Friends and family discount for all of us for just a couple of days coming up on November 9th through the 11th. Mark your calendar. You're going to save like crazy, not only on the nuts and the goodies, the candies and the peanut brittle, but you're going to save on decor as well. As a matter of fact, in the store, they're going to have people there who can really help you out and give you some advice for decorating this holiday season. You're going to be amazed. That store is wonderful at 434 South on 3rd West. Don't miss it. The Friends and Family event, 20% off on everything in the store. Mark your calendar. It's on November 9th through the 11th, the Western Nut Company.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Call the pros at Yes and take $50 off any heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical system repair over $200. Get fast relief and $50 off any repair from Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. The same great people providing the same great service that Utah has counted on for more than 45 years. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment.
We have emergency traffic now, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Tooele County drivers, right now, SR 36 Main Street is closed in both directions at 1000 North as crews are still trying to reach the scene and battle this blaze. We also have secondary crashes in the mix, especially on the southbound side where we have several vehicles involved. This is a spot you need to avoid altogether and take an alternate route or delay your travel time. Again, that's both directions of SR 36 Main Street at 1000 North. Then, drivers, be aware. We have reports of a crash involving an excavator that hit an overpass bridge, fell off of its trailer, and is now sitting on the roadway southbound I-215's west belt just before 3500 South. Right lanes are blocked, and we have delays there. Join the Utah Symphony for the greatest classical hits from the 1700s to today. Tickets start at $21. Get yours today at utahsymphony.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather cloudy with warmer daytime temperatures through Monday, and there's a 30% chance of rain on Tuesday. And right now, we're at 64 degrees under mostly cloudy skies at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. The news has been nonstop this week, so we're going to catch you up on all the major things happening that you may have missed, or maybe some of those headlines where you thought you knew what it was all about, but if you look a little deeper, it might be time to think again.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we want to just continue on with some of the things that have happened during the course of the week. And I will just note, President Joe Biden has just concluded delivering remarks in Maine following the mass shooting that killed 18 people this past week. President Biden has met with first responders. He's met with families in the wake of the Lewiston, Maine mass shooting. And he just delivered some remarks. And I think this is one of those things that we often miss. It is part of the role of the president to be the consoler-in-chief in moments like this. It's also an opportunity for the president to call the American people to do something, to come together, to deal with specific issues. And the president, again, just wrapped up some remarks. We'll pick up those as we go through the afternoon here on KSL News Radio. But it's always important, I think, in those moments when the president addresses the nation, particularly following just such a tragedy and a horrific loss of 18 lives, in Lewiston, Maine, to a mass shooter. And those are important things that we should never forget about, and they should never become so common or commonplace that it doesn't cause us to think again about what we think, what we think we know, what we think we believe. And I think that's what the president was trying to do today in Lewiston, Maine. Now let's continue on with some of the other news of the week that, again, we need to step back and make sure we're not just missing or letting it roll on by. Earlier today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a press conference giving the latest update on the war in Israel. Since the terrorist attack on October the 7th, Blinken has been back and forth between America and Israel. This is his fourth trip. The work that he and other state officials and diplomats have been conducting is critical and urgent. During the press conference, he gave the latest update on humanitarian aid to those suffering inside of Gaza.
We need to substantially and immediately increase the sustained flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza and getting American citizens and other foreign nationals out of Gaza. We've gone from 0 to now over 100 trucks going into Gaza through the Rafah crossing every day. But this is still not enough. I spoke to Israeli leaders about tangible steps that can be taken to increase the sustained delivery of food, water, medicine, fuel, and other essential needs, while putting in place measures to prevent diversion by Hamas and other terrorist groups.
Secretary Blinken also gave a very poignant message on U.S. policy regarding Israel and Palestine, and making clear that our country will still pursue peace and a two-state solution in the region after this war is over.
Even as we work toward progress on each of these urgent needs, we're focused on setting the conditions for a durable and sustainable peace and security. The United States continues to believe that the best viable path is through a two-state solution. That's the only guarantor of a secure Jewish and democratic Israel, the only guarantor of Palestinians realizing their legitimate right to live in a state of their own, enjoying equal measures of security, freedom, opportunity, and dignity, the only way to end a cycle of violence once and for all. It's precisely now, in the darkest moments, that we have to fight hardest to preserve a path of stability, of security, of opportunity, of integration, of prosperity, and of peace.
That's what's happening today inside of Israel with Secretary Blinken. I do think he is absolutely correct that in those darkest moments, we have to fight the hardest to preserve a path toward peace. Now, something else that kind of flew under the radar a little bit this week was Jack Lew was actually confirmed on Tuesday as the new American ambassador to Israel. During the Obama administration, he served as Treasury Secretary and White House Chief of Staff. And already the ambassador is in Israel. He actually greeted Secretary Blinken when he got off the plane there. But I want to go back to a snippet from his confirmation hearing before the Senate to just give you a little perspective in terms of now Ambassador to Israel, Jack Lew.
At this moment, there is no greater mission than to be asked to strengthen the ties between the United States and Israel, to work toward peace in a region that has known so much war and destruction. The savage attack demands the condemnation of the world. I will do my utmost to end the horrific attacks by Hamas and ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself. And I will spare no effort in working to help American citizens now captive to return home safely. And I will work to root out payments to terrorists and their families as rewards for their heinous crimes. I will work to prevent other state or non-state actors from expanding this conflict to new fronts. And I will coordinate with the international community to address the humanitarian crisis facing innocent civilians in Gaza who are being used as human shields by Hamas.
So that is the new ambassador to Israel from the United States, Jack Lew. He was confirmed by the Senate on Tuesday and proved that the Senate can actually get some confirmations done if it chooses to. And that's an important message because many have said that the Senate is paralyzed. And in fact, on another front, still relating to military and war and foreign relations, the battle continues to go on with Senator Tuberville, who has been preventing the Senate from passing all of these promotions in the military by unanimous consent. And I want to hit this just because this is one of those areas where what we are hearing in most places is not actually the reality in terms of the rules of the Senate. If you only listen to the headlines, if you don't dig underneath it at all, you would believe that Tommy Tuberville, senator, is a one-man blockade that is putting our national security at risk, that he is holding, is the term, these confirmations for some 350 promotions to take place inside the military. And it's become very angry. Senator Tuberville, who is a Republican, has had many Republican colleagues turn on him saying, you can't do this. This is putting us at risk. And here's the important think again moment. The Senate, if it follows its own rules, could have and should have had all 350 of these promotions done back in January and February of this year, even though Senator Tuberville has said you can't do it by unanimous consent. Now, on the floor of the Senate, they often will pull up a whole batch of things and say, is there any dissent that we pass all of these by unanimous consent? And if nobody says anything, then everything passes. It's actually the way most bills get passed in the United States Senate. They go into the empty chamber, they put it on the table, they say, does anyone object to passing all of these things all at once? And if nobody's there to object, then they're all done at once. And what Senator Tuberville, again, agree or disagree with his reasoning and what he's doing, cannot stop that from happening. All he is saying is you have to take a vote. So you have to go through the process. Now, some people say, but he's still holding all of this back. Well, no, the Senate proved this week that they can pass as many of those as they want. In fact, they passed 3 just on Wednesday. 3 crucial positions that needed to be advanced, and they did it. So they actually proved that they can do this, but they just don't like to because it actually takes time. And they actually have to go through the process, and they actually have to stand up and take a vote. And so when you hear a lot of that headlines this week that Tommy Tuberville is putting the nation at risk, again, you can disagree with his stance and his strategy and tactics and all of that. But the reality beyond the headline, the think again moment, is if the Senate just did its job, none of this would be an issue. It would all be done. It could have been done starting in January. It could have been concluded in a couple of weeks. And some people say, well, the Senate wouldn't have been able to do anything else. Well, tell me what the Senate has been doing. Long pause. No answer. Surely they could have at least been doing this part of their work, despite the way that Senator Tuberville is going about it. So got to get past the headlines. As always, that's the key. And those are some of the things that you might have missed this week. And we're going to step aside now for a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to come to one of my favorite things, and that is what I learned from inside sources this week. I love this part of the job and what we do here on this show every day because I learn things. And I want to share with you a couple of things that have stuck with me during the course of the week that have been significant learning in how I think again about what I think I know and what I've learned I didn't really understand. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Use the most convenient KSL live stream on the KSL News Radio app.
Mayhem there on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, ceasefire now.
Podcast Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson.
Humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza.
There's this struggle of exactly how to proceed.
One more fake fight and false choice.
Get alerts for Utah news written with balance and fairness.
I like when I'm given information in a way that makes me think more.
I usually go to the KSL app.
On your phone and around the house, use the app for KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Well, fire crews are on top of the fire, but we still have a multiple vehicle crash and a lot of emergency crews on the scene working this area. For Tooele County drivers, you need to avoid SR 36 Main Street both directions due to this crash at 10th North. Find an alternate route. This is likely going to be closed for a good bit. We'll keep you posted with updates here at KSL News Radio. In the meantime, just avoid this spot and use an alternate. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Does your company offer health insurance to your employees? If so, how do you know if you're getting the best deal on employee benefits? Did you know that a benefit broker makes more money when you spend more? Brokers are not only incentivized to steer you to more expensive insurance plans, but the more quotes they get, the harder they have to work and the less money they make. My name is Keith with Magellan and Linden. We're a different kind of benefits broker that offers a best plan, best price guarantee. We get insurance quotes from every insurance company every year. It forces insurance companies to compete for your business and offer the best deal possible. Here's what you do. Visit shopmyplan.com. We'll get you free quotes with no strings attached. If you like what you see, let's work together, and you'll get the best plan at the best price. If your benefits broker isn't getting quotes from every insurance company every year, you're probably paying too much. So visit shopmyplan.com today to get the best deal on employee health insurance. Go to shopmyplan.com today.
Hey guys, do you know what makes Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City different? You. Every Revive treatment and medication is personalized just for you. Revive has the experts that guys go to when their current treatment isn't working. They have a complicated medical condition, or they're just not happy with their daily performance. Since 2011, they've helped thousands of local men suffering with the symptoms of low T and ED. Their goal is simple, to get to the bottom of your issues and fix them. Your best performance requires more than generic ED medications or a low-dose testosterone booster at a low-ball price like you find online. Revive medications are custom compounded, affordable, and guaranteed to resolve your issues. Stop dealing with the symptoms of low T or ED. Book your T-check and exam today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit us at revivemenshealth.com.
Holiday stories from Shane Company customers.
My 3 girls are coming home for the holidays. I created a gemstone necklace for each of them at Shane Company. Gracie loves yellow, so I chose citrine for her. For Ava, I chose blue topaz. It's known to bring clarity. And for Lexi, I went with her birthstone, amethyst. Each gift is unique, just like them.
Personalize your gift with rare and vibrant gemstones sourced from around the world. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
I've worked hard to get where I am. I don't cut corners. I see opportunity and make the most of it. And I'm celebrating that success in style by heading to Jerry Seiner Cadillac to get the car I've been working for. They have new XT4, 5, and 6 models in stock and the area's largest selection of certified pre-owned vehicles. I've put in the work and I've earned the luxury that only comes with a Cadillac. If you have too, then it's time to visit Jerry Seiner and experience the Seiner difference.
Exergen thermometers are proven to be more accurate than non-contact thermometers. With children back at school, keeping them healthy is important. Clinical studies have proven that non-contact thermometers are inaccurate and can miss fevers. Accuracy matters. That's why the Exergen thermometer is trusted and used by medical professionals. Exergen thermometers are available at Walgreens and other participating retailers. Choose a trusted and accurate thermometer for personal use. Learn more about why accuracy matters at Exergen.com.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And if you're missing the last segment, on Friday we always like to bring things full circle. So we've looked in the last segment of the program about some of those things that maybe were a little off radar, some of those news stories that you may not have understood completely. So we dig into those a little bit. And now we're getting to one of my favorite parts of the week, and that is that we're going to look at what I learned from Inside Sources this week, because it's why I love to do this every day, because I get to learn things, and I get to learn from some pretty amazing people from around the world who enlighten me, who challenge my thinking, who keep me curious, and get me to think again about what I think I know, what I think I believe, and places where I'm flat out wrong. And that's always a good place for all of us to get to. So I want to share just a couple in this segment of the things that I learned this week that were just, I like to call them the wow moments. It was like, wow, I had not thought about it that way. And I want to start with a conversation we had earlier this week with Stephen Hill. Now, Stephen's an election consultant. He's co-founder of Fair Vote. And looking at what's going on inside of Gaza, he broke down how Hamas was able to gain power and gain control starting back in 2006. Now, they had an election that year, and they elected a Palestinian government. And it was really between some party lines between Hamas and Fatah, known today as the Palestinian Authority. But listen to how Stephen broke this down in terms of what happened and how it really is part of the genesis of why we're in the challenge and the difficult situation that those Palestinians inside of Gaza find themselves in today.
Half of the seats were similar to the way we do elections in the United States for the most part. And then the other half was more of a European style, what they call proportional representation. And with a proportional representation system, what's important about that method is that, say you have a political party that gets 40% of the vote, they get 40% of the seats and no more. Whereas in our winner-take-all system, you can get distortions depending on how districts are drawn and all sorts of things, where a party that wins 40% of the vote might win a majority of the seats. And so this happened in the Palestinian election, where it was a close election between Hamas and Fatah. Both of them got about 44, 42, 43% of the vote. They each got a similar number of seats. But in the winner-take-all system, it broke down very badly because of these sorts of distortions that can creep in. And Hamas had about 41% of the popular vote in the winner-take-all half of the elections, but it won 68% of those seats, while Fatah won only 26%. That gave Hamas overall a strong majority, even though they had a minority of the vote. And this led to overrepresentation of the pro-Hamas sentiment and a breakdown in relations between the different Palestinian factions in that government. And it all fell apart shortly thereafter into a civil war, and they've never had an election since.
So I know as we've been watching this thing play out inside of Gaza, we've talked about the innocent civilians there, the innocent Palestinians who don't support Hamas. And nobody's talking about the fact that this really goes back to 2006 and how without that need for Hamas to build a coalition government, to be able to have to work or be forced to work with other factions to govern, they didn't have to. And so they just took absolute control and power. They haven't had an election since. And that's a stunning thing. And that need and that the benefit of being forced to put together a coalition government can lead to some very different outcomes. That was really stunning. That was a wow moment for me. I also spoke this week, one of my favorite interviews, Joseph Braude is the president of an organization called the Center for Peace Communications. In fact, I'm doing a deep dive conversation with Joseph for the Sunday edition. You can see that on KSL5 TV at 9 a.m. on Sunday. But here on radio, we started with him telling me about a project called Whispered in Gaza. Take a listen.
You have to whisper in Gaza if what you want to say is not consistent with what Hamas wants the world to hear. They impose a media blackout on Gaza and make it so the only people who can speak openly are those who are willing to toe their line. And yet the majority of the population, as every survey poll of Palestinians shows, do not want Hamas to rule them. 73% of them think Hamas institutions are corrupt. 70% of them want some other ruling entity. And the one time they ever agree with Hamas is when there's a truce and they want Hamas to observe it. So their popularity plummeted even further when Hamas did what it brutally and tragically did on October 7th, triggering a war. And so we wanted to find a creative way to let these voices be heard, which is their aspiration.
So what they have done is they have interviewed and allowed people inside of Gaza, these Palestinians, to speak out without giving up their identity, without being filmed on camera. And then they turn it into animation. They turn it into all of these different stories and are trying to tell this story of the Palestinians inside, what it's like to live under Hamas. to all the world. It's an important conversation and an incredible effort. And I had Joseph explain just a little bit more as to why it's so vital to have an avenue, a way for the voiceless to raise their voice.
What we did was to forge direct contact with current residents of the Gaza Strip, across the Gaza Strip, and interview them on condition of anonymity. And in honoring that commitment, by the way, everybody wanted to talk. As soon as people found out there was a way that they could speak anonymously, everybody wanted to say their piece. And what we did to honor the commitment was to bring together a wonderful team of animators and illustrators and musicians to create a visual representation of the stories their voices told. And what you have are 25 clips of stories of life under Hamas, from arbitrary arrests, extortion, violence, violation of personal freedoms, particularly those of women, shakedowns of local merchants. And what you're looking at is a sort of an adult cartoon.
So it's an extraordinary effort. I learned so much from Joseph in all of this. They also have projects throughout the Middle East that deal with everything from removing landmines in Syria to developing curriculum that helps people span some of the historic divides in the area. They have medical combination efforts going on to build bridges and connections. It's an extraordinary work. And again, you can see a deep dive with Joseph Braude, who is the president of the Center for Peace Communications. And again, this whole animated series around Whispered in Gaza is just stirring, sometimes chilling, but it's an important voice to those who have no voice against Hamas. So that's an important one. It's one of the real wow moments for me this week. I also had another one, but I'm actually going to save it for 2:50. I had a fantastic conversation with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership, and you can listen to that coming up at 2:50 when we dive into this idea of compassion and condemnation and how you hold those two things together. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, our friend Dave McCann's going to join us. He's got a new book out, A Little BYU Football. C is for Cougar. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Breaking news out of Tooele now, where a semi crashed into a building on Main Street this afternoon. Started a fire that sent a plume of black smoke high above the valley. Police Corporal Colby Bentley says the semi crashed into the Tooele Auto Mall.
We've got several injuries. No one believed to be stuck inside the building right now, but we've got fire actively fighting that.
There was also another accident related to a police chase in the same area. Right now, Highway 36 through that area is closed. The Grand County Sheriff says the suspect in this morning's homicide at the Lowe's store in West Bountiful has been taken into custody. The department's Facebook page says Highway 191 is now open again between Moab and Monticello. West Bountiful police had identified the suspect as Jake Jackson. They'd been trying to locate him before he turned up in southern Utah. Shooting happened about 5 o'clock this morning in the parking lot of the home improvement store. The victim was a man in his 50s, and his name has not been released. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. As Israel fights forward into Gaza, its forces continue to face a huge network of underground tunnels built by Hamas over many years. Achik Klein was a former officer in the Israeli army, and he was blinded when he was carrying out an operation in a mile-long Hamas tunnel.
We already saw a lot of videos that terrorists just pop up from one of the hole, just put a charge on one of the tanks and ran away.
And that fighting continues in Gaza at this moment with IDF forces and Hamas. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 222 points. And the NASDAQ closing trading today at 184 points up. The S&P 500 was up 40. And our KSL weather, cloudy weekend, maybe a little rain next week. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
on KSL News Radio.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
At SimpliSafe, we've designed award-winning home security with advanced sensors, HD cameras, and now this, 24/7 LiveGuard protection, only from SimpliSafe. Now, monitoring agents can see and speak to intruders through our new indoor camera to help stop crime in real time and for fast police response. Get 20% off any new system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplisafe.com/radio. Advanced home security, 24/7 professional monitoring for less than $1 a day. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Do you have chirping smoke detectors? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you've ever experienced chirping smoke detectors, you already know how annoying it can be. A great first step to try and stop the chirping is to change the batteries. If the chirping continues, it's possible that your smoke detector has gone bad. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even realize that manufacturers recommend replacing the smoke detector altogether after 10 years. If you remove the smoke detector from the wall, on the back you should find a date of when it was made. Do a little math and you'll know how old it is. Now, Any Hour Services knows being a homeowner means you've got a list a mile long of things to do around the house, and check my electrical system probably isn't one of them. That's why we've put together this radio special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive inspection of your electrical system that includes testing those smoke detectors and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. Call Any Hour Services to schedule it. 801-443-7300. 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
We have emergency traffic now, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Well, the problem for Tooele County drivers, you have to avoid SR 36 Main Street at 10th North. It is closed in both directions. Again, for Tooele County drivers, this is due to multiple crashes and a fire, so you need to find an alternate route. Now, we also have another issue that will affect drivers who normally take I-215's West Belt. We've had a crash there where an excavator is still laying on the roadway southbound I-215's West Belt prior to 3500 South. 2 right lanes are blocked, and we do have delays, but that is not expected to be cleared for another couple of hours. If the West Belt is your normal drive home, plan now to take an alternate route. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, cloudy with warmer daytime temperatures through Monday, and then there's a 30% chance of rain on Tuesday. Right now, mostly cloudy, 66 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we come down the home stretch on a Friday, of course, it is football in the air season, especially college football. BYU fans, of course, from everywhere recognize the voice of Dave McCann. He's been a treasured voice throughout Cougar Nation for a long time, and, of course, a good friend of the show here. He's also the author of a very fun new book, C is for Cougar, a BYU football ABC book. And Dave, longtime TV play-by-play announcer for Brigham Young University, host of BYU Sports Nation Game Day. Podcast is The Wise Guys. That's a big capital Wise Guys. And Dave, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it is great to be with you. And as for Utah fans, I think I would be the untreasured voice of what we got going on down here, but we welcome them in anyway.
Absolutely. It's connecting all the dots there for the BYU fans and the Utah fans as well, who had very similar fates last weekend, tragically, and but same score, same result, and hopefully they both bounce back. But you've been part of BYU athletics and BYU football for a long time, and so give us a little bit of the backstory to this new book, C is for Cougar.
Hey, we're excited about it. We've all read books to our grandkids, and I was reading the same books over and over to mine a couple of years ago, and I thought, you know what? There should be an alphabet book for me because I'm going to read it to them. And did a little research and found that there wasn't an alphabet book about BYU football in the history of the world. And I said to my wife, you know what, I'm going to text Sherry Dew and see if this is something that we could do together with Deseret Book. And I love my wife, and she was like, yeah, right, like Sherry's going to answer you back. But she didn't know I'm friends with Sherry Dew, and I didn't tell her that. Anyway, a few minutes later, Sherry texted back and said, oh, this is great, and then hooked me up with her key people to make it happen. And here we are heading into Christmas time, and the book goes on sale Tuesday. Although I was at a Deseret Book today, and it was already on the shelf, and I thought, hey, that's kind of cool that there's something, you know, there's President Nelson's new book, there's President Oaks' new book, and then there's this guy named Dave McCann, his new book, and I thought, location, location, location.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you can never underestimate the power of BYU football in the building. So that's a good thing. So kind of walk us through. Not everyone sets out to write a children's book like that, but I love the fact that one, the genesis of this starts with you reading to your grandchildren. That's an important principle and message to everybody listening today. But give us a few highlights there. I know it's A to Z from Tyler Algier to Matt Zundel, and give us a little perspective.
So I had to come up with 26 names, and some were easy. Some were like when you turn to the letter X, there's just one player in the history of BYU football that's last name starts with an X, and I had to track him down to get his permission. And he was like, "What did I do?" I said, "No. I want to put you in this book." And even Matt Zundel, at first when I reached out to him, he goes, "Is this like a fraud thing? Is this a joke?" Because I never anticipated anyone would ever seek me out to put me in a book. And I said, "Well, no, it's really me, and you just happen to have the right last name for the letter Z." And so it was fun reaching out and connecting with all 26. Some, like Eldon Forti, has passed away, but I was able to catch up with Janice and their family in Arizona, and they were so excited that the Phantom would be remembered like this. And so then it became, all right, then we went to BYU and went to BYU Photo, and the guys were great down there, and we searched for the right picture for all these different guys. And, you know, for Ty Detmer, there's a million pictures. But for some of these others, there might be just one, and we had to find it.
Had to find that one.
I think it just turned out great.
No, it's so good and so fun. So many different fun facts and just favorite players and coaches and all of those folks. And some of them may even be new to some of those readers. What was the surprise moment? There's always a surprise moment when you're writing a book. And so what was the surprise moment beyond the fact that you got to surprise your wife and say, hey, they actually are interested in this?
Yeah, I can tell you there was a little bit of spite in the motivation to do this because she was quite sure I could. Two, one, that Sherry Dew thought it was a great idea, and you and I both have great relationships with her, and that was outstanding. And then the funnest thing for me is all 26, from Jim McMahon to Tyler Algier to Taysom Hill, all of them were so excited to be in it. And the caveat was, I said, if you'll let me do it, I will send you one for your kids. And, you know, who gets to have a letter of the alphabet? Well, 26 of these guys do. And it's all, like you said, Boyd, it's all centered around family time, reading, and I envision a day when this book is in every church bag, every office, and every family room. If not, and you don't even have to have kids to have it. It's just it's just cool. And with BYU's reach so vast around the world, and the same with Deseret Book, that I just think it's a marriage made in heaven, and excited about it.
Oh, that's good fun. And give us a little insight rolling into the weekend. And we always talk about how resilient kids are. BYU is going to have to take a page out of your book and find some of that resiliency on a bounce-back weekend. What are you looking for?
I hope they go to the letter W and just go W for a win. This is going to be a challenge at West Virginia. There'll be a brand new quarterback taking his first Division I snaps, and Jake Retzlaff. And there's some excitement in that, and certainly some mystery with Keaton Slovis banged up. And so, that position is huge in the history of BYU. And so when a new guy comes in and takes his first snap, everybody's eager to see if it's going to be the next Steve Young or the next Dave McCann, and they're hoping for Steve Young. But this is a game also that would get them bowl eligible.
Yeah,
and
very
it's
important.
on Fox National TV and, of course, KSL News Radio, and we're busy with pre- and post-game on BYU TV. And it's just the fun thing about when BYU football goes into a town like Morgantown, and we had the alumni rep for BYU on the East Coast on our Wise Guys show this week, and she said, BYU's never played there, but BYU alums are coming from everywhere up and down the East Coast, and it's just it's a reason to get together. And then when the football team plays well, and they're playing at night, and they're 20-1 in their last 21 night games, when that team plays well, it's just makes it better. But it's togetherness, whether it's in this book or this football team or wherever the Cougars go. It's the togetherness time that creates the memories that we talk about long after the team has left. And West Virginia, Morgantown's going to get one of those tomorrow night.
And that will be an exciting game. That's an amazing place to watch a game. I actually watched a West Virginia-Pittsburgh game there years ago.
Really?
And it is
That's
a
like
rock'em sock'em kind of battle there. And but it'll be a fascinating one. And, of course, we'll always tune in to listen to Dave McCann. And, again, if you're looking for something great to read to your kids and your grandchildren, C is for Cougar, a BYU football ABC book from our very own good friend, Dave McCann. Dave, thanks so much for joining us today.
Boy, it's also great to visit with America's Voice of Reason anytime. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. Great stuff there. Great way to roll out our Friday. We'll take a quick step aside for a last break. When we come back, some final thoughts on our Friday, some things for you to think about rolling into the weekend coming up next. Stick around.
Get ready, Utah! It's Medicare annual enrollment period, so why not make enrolling easier with United Healthcare? Whether you choose our online tools or over-the-phone support, United Healthcare will help you compare options so you can choose a plan with confidence. This is Medicare made for Utah, trusted everywhere. Explore our wide range of plans by calling United Healthcare today at 1-855-MEET-UHC. That's 1-855-MEET-UHC. Annual enrollment begins October 15th and ends December 7th, so call today.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact us at aimyourdigital.com for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. We are Bonneville Salt Lake. Your success starts at aimyourdigital.com.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No, we tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our client's best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured, so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly, different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. SR 36 Main Street is closed in Tooele due to crashes and fires. And we have delays in both directions, but particularly on the southbound side, with all the emergency crews still blocking traffic at 10th North. Again, this is a spot you need to avoid altogether. We're also seeing backups in both directions on SR 112 connecting to SR 36. You do need to avoid this spot and take an alternate route if possible. And if this is your normal drive home, plan ahead for an alternate route. We do not know when this will be cleaned up and the road will be reopened. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
This is the lunch rush at your local deli. Orders are flying in. Online, on the phone, and in person.
Order for Nick.
So is it possible that fast internet could help your business outrun the rush? It is with Comcast Business. Up-leveling your speed with gig speed Wi-Fi, powering all your devices, in fast downloads and uploads, powered by the next generation 10G network. With Comcast Business, next level speed isn't just possible, it's happening. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $59.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Plus, ask how to get an $800 prepaid card with a qualifying internet bundle. Call or go online to learn more. Ends 11/12/2023. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and automatic payments. New 50 megabits per second internet and Security Edge customers only. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After 12 months, regular rates apply. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig internet and compatible router.
It's Congressman Blake Moore here. My team and I have been closely monitoring the tragic events happening in the Middle East. At the hands of Hamas, families have been torn apart, communities have been ruined, and innocent civilians have lost their lives. I have been using my role in Congress to stand up for Israel and the innocent civilians impacted by these terrible acts of terrorism. I joined my Utah House colleagues in signing a bipartisan resolution supporting Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas's brutal attacks. And I led a congressional letter to the Egyptian ambassador encouraging the establishment of safe zones in southern Gaza. I am also seeking to identify the intelligence failures that led to this tragedy. The United States has an opportunity to lead in this conflict and reaffirm our commitment to the Israeli people, religious liberty, and the eradication of terrorism. If anyone you know is in Israel and needs assistance, please call my Ogden office at 801-625-0107. That's 801-625-0107. We're here to help. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie. Now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Tim and Amanda, Utah's Morning News.
Trust is more important in our business, Tim, than it's ever been in my lifetime, in all of my many years of being here at KSL, because there's so much misinformation out there. And there's so much information that is heavy laden with opinion. When you come to us in the morning, what you get is the news. You get what's happening without a lot of spin or opinion and without any misdirection. That's just the pure, simple thing that you get.
When you talk about the misinformation that's out there, which there is, sometimes those stories just change from one morning to the next. And so hopefully you feel like each day as new information becomes available or we learn new things, this was certainly true during the pandemic, this is the place where we're going to share that information with you and talk about the things that are going to most affect your life.
Wake up with Utah's Morning News with Tim and Amanda between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a multi-vehicle crash resulted in a fire and shut down Main Street in Tooele at 1000 North. Second, a standoff involving a murder suspect in southern Utah ended with an arrest. The man suspected of shooting and killing another man in West Bountiful early this morning. And third, Israeli forces dealing with a network of underground tunnels in Gaza where Hamas fighters are hiding and hostages may be held as well. Right now, mostly cloudy, 66 degrees in Salt Lake City, and back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. As we round out the day and round out the week, we always like to look at things we might have missed, or for me, on a Friday, I like to look back at the things that I learned during the week. It is the best part of doing this show is what I get to learn, because I get to be challenged by people who are really smart, who think differently, who have different points of view. And I think it's an important part of what we all should do on a Friday is just stop for a minute and say, what did I learn this week? And who did I learn from this week? Because learning is the key to everything. It's the key to happiness. It's the key to staying young. And it's the key to being smarter, is to just don't think you know it all, or to don't be content with just skimming across the headlines or the surface of the issues in your world. Dig in. Get below the surface. Ask the harder question. Listen a little bit different. Listen to people who disagree with you. Listen to people who think differently than you do. And you'll find you'll have a whole bunch of wow moments. And we love wow moments. One of the big wow moments for me this week came with a conversation we had right here on this program with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield. Now, Rabbi Hirschfield is the president of the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership out of New York. And he had written something in Religious News about the war in Israel and Gaza and how it will challenge us to think differently, or think again, as we like to say on this show, in relationship to two really important things that we often put at opposite ends of the spectrum: compassion and that moral clarity. And how you can hold both of those things, that you can condemn evil and you can have immense compassion at the same time. So as I spoke with Rabbi Hirschfield, he described how we can maybe think again about compassion and condemning evil. Take a listen.
I lived in Israel for years. I'm a proud Zionist. We could do all that. It's irrelevant. Compassion means that when innocent Palestinians die, I mourn. Compassion for other human beings doesn't mean it matters which side of a political line they fall on, if in fact they are innocent. Being morally resolute at the same time means not trying to flatten the distinction between all deaths or all fights. The fact of the matter is that this war was begun, and I get it, Israel is not perfect, but this war was begun by Hamas, whose stated purpose is not only to destroy the state of Israel, but to murder as many Jews as possible as they do so. So the fact is, being morally resolute means knowing that the two sides in this fight are in no way equal, and being compassionate means maintaining the ability to cry over the innocents who die on either side of any line. And we all have to be able to do that.
That's my conversation with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield earlier this week. And I have to tell you, I have been thinking about this conversation. You can actually go back and listen to the entire interview with Rabbi Hirschfield. If you just go to the KSLpodcast.com and then just go to Inside Sources, you can find that interview in its entirety. I've been thinking about it all week long, because to go through and to figure out how do we navigate all of that? How can we mourn the loss of every innocent life? And at the same time, how do we guard against sacrificing our compassion in the name of defending morality? How will we guard against allowing dangerous moral relativism to fuel well-intentioned compassion? That's a struggle. That's a challenge for all of us to think through. And can we have compassion for all? And can we have the moral clarity and certainty to not buy into the moral relativism and conflate everything as being equal in the name of compassion? We end up getting lost on all sides. And one of the important things that I walked away from our conversation with Rabbi Hirschfield is that we have to step back and recognize and reject. We have to reject the idea of it's all or nothing, that it's all this or all that. It's the false choice of all of that, and so I think that component of it is a really interesting thing to look at. And as we were talking with Rabbi Hirschfield during the week this week, that it was a crucial component to all of this. That we just have to step back past the headlines. Don't allow us to conflate everything into one. It's not all relative. It's not all equal. But there is this extraordinary idea that we can have compassion and we can condemn evil. And we can do it in a way that can change the conversation, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And how do we do that? And how do we navigate that? And how do we avoid just falling into all the traps? And again, the danger of allowing moral relativism to